Hi, my compadres. Thanks for joining us today on our journey through the Bible. One day at a time, Genesis to Revelation in this year. I'm Tim, your guide to the Bible. Our reading for today was in Jeremiah chapter 26 to 28. And in chapter 27, God gives another unusual task for Jeremiah. It's meant to illustrate our relationship with God. And maybe I can illustrate it by using our International Space Station, for example. Last I knew, there are two astronauts that are trapped up there. They went up there a while ago to test out a new spacecraft. It was made by Boeing, probably their first mistake right there. But they went up. The idea is they're going to stay in the space station for 8 days and then just come right back down. And the last I knew, that they've been up there for 2 months, and they can't get these two astronauts back down. But um, docking with the International Space Station is interesting because it's in orbit around the Earth. This represents the space station. Um, And so here comes our spacecraft. It's going to dock with the International Space Station. Now, you may think the spacecraft has to go faster than the space station in order to catch up, but it doesn't work that way. And by the way, I'm not a rocket scientist. If I've got this wrong, feel free to educate me in the comments. But from my understanding, if the spacecraft speeds up, it doesn't catch up with the International Space Station. It just goes into a higher orbit. And if it goes even faster, the orbit's going to be even higher. So it'll never catch up with the space station in that way. And what it actually has to do is go into a higher orbit for a period of time and then slow down in order to catch up. Well, I think our relationship with God is a little bit like that because sometimes we think that it's up to God to conform to our plans, right? We have our own talents and abilities, we think. We have our own ideas maybe about how we can serve God the best, and it's up to Him um, to conform with us. And the reality is, it's just the opposite. We need to submit our lives to His orbit, to His control. The more we yield ourselves to His power, the more power is available for us in service, and the greater our relationship is with God. It's a case of if you lose, you win. I think that's the illustration that Jeremiah is giving us here today. My goal is to help you understand God is really in control of every area of your life. So in chapter 27, verse 1, another strange assignment for Jeremiah. It says, in the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, came this word unto Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, thus saith the Lord to me, make thee bonds and yokes, and put them on thy neck. Now, most scholars think that chapters 27 and 29 are linked in background and in contents. There were false prophets at that time who were giving false optimism to people and telling them that don't worry about Babylon. God's not going to let them come in here. And they were foreign countries that were neighboring Judah. They were telling them the same thing. Rebel against Babylon. We don't need these Babylonians around here. And that's why God gave him this illustration. Bonds, yokes on your neck. A yoke was two wooden crossboards connected by leather straps. And the idea was this was just a device that would enable two animals to pull together to do the work in the fields that needed to be done. And that's the picture. Um, you're on one side, God is on the other side. You're pulling together by yielding to what He has in mind. And of course, that's not what the people were thinking. According to Jeremiah 28 to 20, Jeremiah was actually wearing this thing when another of these false prophets, Hananiah, challenged him. You see, a yoke is a symbol of submission and servitude and humility. Well, who needs that? That's what the false prophets were saying. But it was meant to be a picture of the plan that God had in mind for Judah. You know, there is a yoke that God has for you. There's a yoke that God has for me. I really believe that God put me on this earth just to teach people the Bible. And I try to be faithful in doing that with my teaching and preaching, and even with these um, videos, such as they are, that go out on YouTube. I try to be faithful to work with the calling that God has given me. And if I try to go outside of that and think, "Oh, I want to be a great musician, I'll make that my life's work," I'd be in opposition to what God has in mind. We wouldn't be working together. But no, I'm going to be in the yoke that he has for me. And that's the picture that we have here. And the same is true for the other nations around Judah. They're mentioned beginning in verse 3: Edom, Moab, the Ammonites, um, the king of Tyre, Sidon. Now, these nations were not God's chosen people by any means, but God had a plan for them. He had a yoke in mind for them as well. You see, that's the problem with only having just one God, and there is only one. We want to be God, but it doesn't work that way. God simply will not stay in those little boxes we make for God. And it's no wonder Jeremiah became unpopular as a prophet, but he got it right. He told the truth. And the truth is that people always honor prophets who tell them what they want to hear and destroy the living ones. My friends, the message today is submit yourself to the yoke, to the plan that God has for your life. And in that way, you'll gain the power that God has to be available for you. Your relationship with God will be closer because you've yielded, you've submitted to the yoke that God has in mind for you. Would you think about that today, my friends? Meditate on it and stay in the Word. Keep reading. Our scripture reading for tomorrow is in Jeremiah chapter 29 to 31. I'll be reading there, and I'll look forward to being back with you again very soon. Have a great day, folks.